All right, guys, welcome back to the Pocket Mads channel. It's Maddie here. Today, we have a set review. That's right, once a month, we get to talk about all of the new cards that came to Pokemon Pocket. Paldean Wonders officially released tonight. I just got off the live stream. I played for a couple hours, opened up a bunch of packs, tested a bunch of decks. So I have a really good idea, I think, of like what's going on with these new cards and how good they are and I guess how impactful they're going to be in the metagame. So today I'm just going to go ahead and review all of the new cards. I think a lot of people initially when they saw the trailer for Paldean Wonders, they were definitely a little bit underwhelmed, but trust me, this set has a ton of absolute gems that I think are going to drastically change the metagame. And if you're wondering, that's what this video is mostly about, is sort of, analyzing cards as they will kind of come into the competitive metagame for Pokemon Pocket, which cards are the best to use and how we're going to play them and how they're going to do against other things that are actively present in the metagame. Now, before we get into it, you got to go register for PMPT number 22. It's the Paldean Premier $200 cash prize pool. It's a tournament that we're running this Saturday at noontime. It is our first big tournament here since the release of Paldean Wonders, right? So all of these new cards are legal. You can go ahead and build decks and play in the tournament with all of the new cards that just released. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to live stream it this weekend. Trust me, it's going to be absolutely super duper hype. So I'm very excited for it. Link to register down in the description below. Anyway, shout out to everybody that tuned into the live stream. Anyway, let's just dive right into it. So again, some of the stuff, we've already talked about. It had already sort of shown these cards in the trailer, so there's not too much to say about them. They did showcase Sprigatito and the new Meowscarada. We did get a new Florigato, so this is, I think, a direct upgrade from the previous one that we had available to us, which was 2 grass energies for 40 damage. Now we have 1 energy for 30, and this is definitely a better card. Unfortunately, we're still just out of range of being able to KO a Dino with weakness. I will say, if this Florigato had a 40 damage attack for 1 energy, it would be much, much better, because then you could evolve and then actually just KO a Dino. It might be worth playing in Meowscarada decks, but this Florigato is still an upgrade. Most of the time, I think you might not even play the middle evolution unless Chingling's really common. But anyway, there it is. We've already talked about Meowscarada. It was a card that we had available to us in the trailer, right? When the set was initially released. And I think that Meowscarada is a very, very fun card. In testing this card, I think that it's going to have some really good matchups and some really bad matchups. I think that it's really difficult for a card like this to be, tier 0 potential, but I do think this has really solid, tier 1, tier 2 type potential. I think it could do really well into some top meta decks. It will struggle into some other meta decks. Now, I think that the big question with this is how well it will do into Hydreigon, and this is definitely going to be a big question. In my testing with Meowscarada, I tried it with Chingling. I think you could play this like with Kartana and just be like a little fast-paced, aggressive type deck. The issue with Meowscarada, I think inherently, is that no matter what, you're going to be forced to, most of the time, get double Meowscaradas on the board unless you play this with something like an Ogerpon as like a backup attacker, because you want your opponent to have to go through 2 big Pokemon when you're playing Meowscarada, and if your opponent has to go through double Meowscarada, that could be fine. We also have the old Meowscarada non-EX card that can hit for 130 on EX or non-EX Pokemon, or no, EX Pokemon. So I think that some combination of all of these is really cool. Flower Trick in my testing is a really, really fun attack. You can put some great pressure on your opponent. The mind games are really cool. If you can get this thing out on your second turn, this is a very, very strong Pokemon. This is like Crobat, except we can target any Pokemon on the bench. It can pair nicely into a turn 3 Cyrus combo. I love Meowscarada. You can also Leaf Cape this thing. Tons of different things you can do with Meowscarada. So a really neat card. I really do like it. Again, this is a mini set, so there's not a ton of crazy things to talk about in this, in this particular set, but there are a couple of things that are really relevant. So this shouldn't be a super long video, but anyway, shout out to Meowscarada. We are getting a new Spite Ops card, or I think the first Spite Ops card. This is 40 damage for 1 energy, and your opponent can't retreat. Nothing too special there. I'm going to skip down to Arboliva, which is a very, very powerful card here. I'm not exactly positive how we can play Arboliva other than in just already some of the stall strategies that we have in the metagame right now, but this Pokemon has the Extra Heal ability. Again, this is a stage 2 Pokemon, 130 HP. Extra Heal. Once during your turn, you may heal 60 damage from one of your EX Pokemon that has any energy attached to it. If you do, you discard a random energy from that Pokemon. Now, this is a really big deal. This is effectively a Lily, a free Lily every turn. It's not free. You have to discard an energy from the Pokemon you're healing, but most of the time, not that big of a deal, right? Unless you're playing a Pokemon that discards energies when it attacks, you can basically play Arboliva to keep a Pokemon alive for much longer in the active spot. I don't know exactly how people will play Arboliva, but I do know that this is a very, very powerful effect. Technically, you could double do this every turn. You could have double Arbolivas, but then you would need a way to get 2 energies on the same Pokemon. Maybe we play this with some of the already stall strategies in the game, things like Snorlax, things like Steelix. You could even play this just like with Indeedee and have double Indeedee heals on top of Arboliva and heal for 100 damage. You could play this with a different stage 2 EX Pokemon to have access to Lily and a ton of HP. So I like this card. I think it's really strong. I just don't know off the top of my head where Arboliva is going to see play, but 60 healing is a really big deal. I think that this could be a very annoying card in certain decks, and I think it's probably going to see play, you know, in stall type strategies that we've seen kind of already. There's a new Brambleghast card here. Most of this is filler, but I will touch on stuff because it's kind of funny. This is 60 damage. Flip a coin until you get tails. 60 for each head. So yeah, I mean, theoretically, Brambleghast could come in and one-hit KO anything. Kind of hilarious. Shout out to Brambleghast. Scovillain is one of the weirdest Pokemon I've ever seen. 60 damage, and if your opponent attacked the Pokemon is Grass or Steel, it does 40 more for 2. So again, really random, very interesting. We are getting Wu-Chien here, which is not an EX. It is a the only like Rumination legendary Pokemon. Wu-Chien, Tinglu, Chi-Yu, and Chien-Pao. The only one that was an EX is Chien-Pao, and we'll get to it. But Wu-Chien here, 90 damage for 4 Grass Energies, 120 HP basic. During your opponent's next turn, attacks used by the defending Pokemon cost 2 more colorless energies. So pretty cool, but not good. Not good at all, really. We got Fuecoco, Crocalor, and then Skeledirge. So let's talk about Skeledirge, another crazy Pokemon. It's got the ability here, Passionate Voice. Once during your turn, you may discard 1 fire energy from this Pokemon in order to use this ability. During this turn, attacks used by your fire Pokemon do 50 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon, 50 more damage. So a really, really strong buff. We've never really seen anything like this in the game. It does cost an energy, but keep in mind, this is a fire type Pokemon, so you could discard the energy from Skeledirge and then reattach that energy to your active Pokemon that turn with Flame Patch. There's some potential here with Skeledirge. I don't know why you would really play this or what you would play this with. I think this could be a really interesting partner for something like an Entei. So that's something I would like to test, but I don't think many fire Pokemon really need the extra 50 damage. But I suppose, again, this is a stage 2 Pokemon, so it's difficult to play something like this with, other, evolution Pokemon, but there might be something in the future. Skeledirge is a very, very powerful, plus 50 damage is a really, really big deal. Things like this aren't that useful in a metagame right now where Hydreigon's very common, but if Mega Pokemon specifically become more and more prominent in the metagame, then Skeledirge could be useful to kind of reach, right, and deal extra damage to maybe one-hit KO some Mega Pokemon. So this could allow Blaziken to hit for like 190. There's a lot of potential here, but a very crazy ability, right? So this is something that, again, might not have a place in the active metagame, right? We don't need Charizard to deal 300 damage, but, theoretically, we have the possibility now to add 50 to Skeledirge. Next up is going to be Armarouge. And yeah, so this is, there's, I think, 3 Pokemon in this set that I really do want to focus on. Armarouge is one of them. So this is a very interesting card here. This is a stage 1, 140 HP fire Pokemon, and it has the ability, quite simply called Armor. That's right, it's literally just called Armor. And this takes 30 less damage from attacks. So this is a really, really, really big deal. We cannot also pair this with Heavy Helmet because, of course, the retreat cost is 2, but this is a fire stage 1 Pokemon, 140 HP, and it takes 30 less damage from attack. So if you want to 1-hit KO Armarouge, you got to hit for 170 damage. Most things in the game are just not doing that, quite frankly. And you could pair this with other healing type cards and kind of get out of reach of getting 2-hit KO'd, possibly. But I think that Armarouge is just a really consistent Pokemon in the sense that it can come in, attack, and then take a hit and attack again. And that's really what Armarouge does quite well. It has the attack your Armor Cannon, 120 damage for a fire and 2 colorless. That's a really important thing to note. I do think you're predominantly going to be playing Armarouge in fire-type energy decks with Flame Patch and whatnot, but you could play this in other types of energy decks, so it's very sort of open-ended. 1 fire energy, double colorless energy in the attack cost is really cool, and then you discard a fire energy from this Pokemon. Again, really not that big of a deal, considering that fire Pokemon have Flame Patch. It's a very common type of an attack. Your 120 damage isn't substantial, but this can be boosted by Training Arena to hit up to 130. I like this Pokemon. I think it's actually really, really good in the decks that I've seen it paired with, which is actually going to be with like the new Charmeleon and Charizard. So instead of Entei or something like that, we actually play Armarouge as a Pokemon that can soak up damage, be really reliable, but actually get a really decent attack off, provide a lot of pressure in that active positioning, while again, we're able to then set up like a Charizard on the back line or something like that. So I really like Armarouge. I think this deck or this Pokemon has a ton of potential. I don't know if Fire is ever going to be, or I guess if this season Fire is going to jump back up into the metagame, but this is something I definitely think could be, fringe meta, tier 1 to tier 2, potentially when paired with the right things. I think that this is just a decently strong card. Again, like 3 energy, 2 colorless. It's really easy to get the 3 energy on this thing. It's a stage 1 Pokemon. We have Sights here. We have Training Arena. And again, minus 30 from attack. So it's just most of the time just never getting KO'd by anything in the game, which is pretty cool. So I like Armarouge. It's a very, very cool card here. Charcadet is the pre-evolution. It doesn't really do anything, just punches for 10, 60 HP. So yeah, very interesting Armarouge here. Next up, we have Chi-Yu, which is actually, I think, just Marshadow, but a fire type Pokemon, 80 HP, 40 damage. But if you had a Pokemon on your board that was KO'd last turn, it does 60 more damage. So it's, 2 energies for 100 on a basic Pokemon, but with that condition where your opponent needs to have KO'd one of your Pokemon last turn. It's very cool. I believe this is literally Marshadow, but fire type. We have Quaxly, Quaxwell, I forgot the middle evolution's name, and Quaquaval. So this is a very weird Pokemon. One of the weirdest Pokemon I've ever seen. 150 HP, water type here, retreat cost of 2. It has Hydro Kick, does 90 damage for 3 energies, which isn't great, but it has the Torrent ability. If this Pokemon's remaining HP is 50 or less, attacks used by this Pokemon do 60 plus damage to your opponent's active, which is 150 for 3. Of course, we do have a ton of ways to generate additional water energies. This is actually not that bad of a Pokemon at 150 HP. So the way that I think about Quaquaval is that you could turbo into it. You could generate additional water energies pretty easily with things like Mantike. And then if you go into it, maybe you giant cape this thing or whatever the case may be, and you attack. But the thing is, you're always going to live an attack. I say always, but most things in the game are one at KOing Quaquaval. So if you come in, hit for 90, or even if your opponent attacks you first, you're going to live and then revenge hit for 150. So I think the main difficulty with Quaquaval is that it's not really something that you're going to be able to use multiple of, unless maybe you go Mantike into double Quaquaval, but it's really not a bad Pokemon. It's just not something I really ever imagine seeing play, especially when you compare this to something like a Hydreigon, right, which is in the format right now, and a very comparable type Pokemon. We have a new Wugtrio, Triple Whip, 30 for 3 coins. Each heads, you do 30 damage, 1 energy, so kind of funny. It's basically Wugtrio that we already have, but a baby version. We have Finizen into Palafin here. This is unfortunately not a great card. 130 for 3 energies on a stage 1, and then 50 damage, but also does 50 to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So things like this, again, just really do struggle in a metagame where, 50 and 50 is just not, it's just not it. You know what I mean? But it is a Pokemon. It is a Pokemon. I'm going to skip through basically all of these cards because they are generally speaking, just not very good cards, and I don't really want to spend the time talking about them. We have a new Tatsugiri, which has a very similar effect to like Oricorio, but it's water type, so it does 20 damage, and then does 60 more if your opponent was KO'd, so it does 80 total for 1. So we have Pokemon like this, like I think Marshadow is 100 for 2. The Oricorio, like the Ghost one, is I think 70 for 1 with the same condition. It might be 80 actually. So this is 80 damage. It's really not a bad card. So I wanted to at least mention it. Next up is going to be the Baxcalibur line. And this is also quite an interesting Pokemon. I'm not going to spend too much time explaining this card, but this is literally Gardevoir. This is Gardevoir, but a water type Pokemon. And this is specific water energies from your energy zone to your active water Pokemon. But once per turn, you just get a free energy, which is kind of cool. I don't know all of the applications for why we would play Baxcalibur. I guess there are some scenarios maybe where we would want to play this. But quite frankly, I think this is definitely a bit of like it's a card that is certainly good. But again, like the Gardevoir from Genetic Apex doesn't see any play. And I think we also have another Pokemon just like this of a different type. I could be wrong. It might be a fighting type card. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be completely remembering something incorrectly, but this has some potential. Of course, it's not a bad Pokemon. Again, off the top of my head, I just don't know I just don't know really what we would use this with. That's just like, it's in the game. It's obviously not bad. I just don't really know. A lot of people are going to tell you that this should be played with the new Chien-Pao, but I'm going to explain to you why that just doesn't really make a lot of sense. And Chien-Pao, unironically, is probably the least impressive card of this entire set. This is an EX card, basic water type, 130 HP. It's got 2 attacks, retreat cost of 1, weak to metal. Icicle, 1 energy, 20 damage. Why is this 20? Why is it not 30? This would be totally fine if it was 30 and then we could KO the bench. Like Palkia does 30. I don't know why Chien-Pao is 20. Quite frankly, it upsets me a little bit. The second attack is Diving Icicles for 3 water energies. You discard all water energy from this Pokemon, even if you have more than 3 energies. And this this attack does 130 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So we can hit the bench or the active. So you have that flexibility for 3 energies. Now, I understand this attack is pretty strong, and I think some people were trying to tell me that Chien-Pao could work with Baxcalibur to kind of attack turn after turn, but I'll tell you what, that just does not work. The only way we can attack turn over turn with Chien-Pao is if we have double Baxcalibur on our bench, and as we know, that's very unlikely to happen. So I think Chien-Pao is an interesting card. I just don't know why or when we would ever play this card, quite frankly. You could play this with something like a Crabominable EX, like where you might just be able to survive in the active, and then this could sort of come in later and then kind of work as like a Cyrus-type win condition where you can just KO a bench Pokemon. So there is some potential here for this card. I don't think it's terrible. It's just not something you ever want to lead off with. And even if you do, I guess you could Icicle, but it's just really not that impressive of a Pokemon. I could be completely wrong about this. This attack might be broken enough to where it's relevant. It's just, it's strange. Again, like a card like this in a metagame dominated by Hydreigon, which will literally 1-hit KO you. It's just, it doesn't feel that good, right? Maybe later in the game where we have some more water type decks and Mega Pokemon are more prevalent, doing 130 to the bench could be really good. But in a Hydreigon dominated metagame, I just don't really see Hydreigon seeing that much play. Who knows? But anyway, there you go. Here is the new Pawmot. So as we know, we are getting Nemona. It's a supporter card that buffs the damage Pawmot does to EX Pokemon by 80. We'll take a look at it later. And this is the new Pawmot. So we do have one in the game already. This is 2 energies, 100 damage. Discard a lightning energy from this Pokemon. So it's kind of crazy. Like this thing is a stage 2 that can hit for 180 damage on an EX Pokemon. So you can 1-hit KO certain Mega Pokemon. It's actually really strong if you have Nemona. Unfortunately, things like this that are not only stage 2 Pokemon, but require supporters to use the full effect are never that consistent. And yet again, in a metagame right now of mostly Hydreigon, I just don't really love Pawmot. However, this is a very powerful combo. It is just a combo deck that just is inherently not as good as Hydreigon. And I think that's one thing that will say about a lot of cards that release over the next couple of months, years, who knows, is that we're going to be comparing them all to Hydreigon, and that is inherently, just the truth. But next up, I'm going to talk about what I believe is, I think, the best Pokemon in this entire set, and that is Bellibolt EX, guys. Were you guys expecting a Bellibolt EX? Because I was not. But this card is functionally broken. This is a stage 1, 160 HP. We're talking Crabominable. We're talking Executor EX. 160 on a stage 1 is great. 160 means we're safe. We're just not going to get KO'd by most things in the game. Really, really cool. Also have a retreat cost of 3 if we want to play Heavy Helmet. Fighting weakness, which means that we're not weak to anything because nobody plays fighting in the metagame, at least not at the moment. Bellibolt EX here has the attack High Voltage Cannon. It does 70 damage for 2 lightning energies. And if you have 4 or more total lightning energies in play, that means not on Bellibolt, but just on your board anywhere, then this attack does 70 more. That's 140 damage if you have 4 energies total in play. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that this is already very easy to accomplish with lightning, right? You have Pichu, you have Zeraora, you have Magneton. So many things in the game generate lightning energies. It is extremely easy, especially if you go second, to get 4 energies onto Bellibolt. We also have Elemental Switch if you wanted to get double energies on Bellibolt on your second turn going first. Honestly, this card is absolutely phenomenal. This is potentially one of the strongest new Pokemon in the entire game. Not only that, but they actually released a new item card which works extremely well alongside Bellibolt. There's also a Tadbulb card. So this is the new Tadbulb, but there's an old one that came out, I think last set or the set before, which has 50 HP and has an attack that generates a lightning energy to itself. So yeah, so that's like a Lycia combo type deal. Trust me, the old Tadbulb with the new Bellibolt EX, this card is insane. It's actually very likely. I don't think people realize how likely and how possible it is to get 4 energies on your board and a Bellibolt on your second turn. So it's effectively kind of like Hydreigon, except you have more HP. It is one of the strongest new things in the game. I think there could be multiple ways that we play Bellibolt. You could play as kind of a slow roll deck with Magneton and Magnezone, but I think that the best way to play Bellibolt, quite frankly, is going to be high roll Bellibolt, which is playing things like Pichu, playing things like Zeraora, and just kind of front loading the deck to be able to hit for massive damage early in the game. It's a really, really powerful card, guys. Also, like, the damage on this thing can get boosted by Training Arena. Again, you can play Heavy Helmet to take less damage here. This is an incredibly powerful Pokemon. It really is one of the most impressive things that we've gotten into the game in quite some time. Now, I could be completely wrong about this. I don't know, but just looking at this card, I just think it's way more possible than people give it credit for, potentially at first glance. And I think that given everything that we have in the game, not only that, but the new card that got added, which we'll talk about later, makes Bellibolt, I think, at the new forefront of this new metagame. And I think that it is kind of the number one thing that I'm going to be looking at to potentially interject itself as like a top tier meta deck. I think that this Bellibolt, like low key in the meta right now, has like top tier potential. I don't know if we're talking tier 0 yet, but I am kind of talking straight up like tier 1 guarantee. This is just a phenomenal Pokemon. So yeah, Bellibolt EX, man. That's kind of the new kid on the block. It's kind of insane. This Miraidon card is really bad, 120 and does 60 for 3 and 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Absolute failure, unfortunate for Miraidon. We've already talked about Ceruledge, can do 140 to an EX Pokemon for 3 energies. Kind of cool. I don't think it'll really see play though. We have a Rabsca, which does 80 and Confusion for 2 Psychic Energies. And we have Espathra, which with 90 HP here, 1 Psychic Energy. Psychic does 30 damage. This attack does 20 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Really not a bad card, but again, like the opposite of a card you would want into Hydreigon, which is, of course, the most popular thing in the game right now. Hydreigon will have no energies attached to it, and it will KO you for, like with weakness, but it doesn't matter anyway because you only have 90 HP. But very interesting. Next up, we have Houndstone. 130 HP Psychic type, Last Respects, does 50 damage for 2 energies here. Does 20 more for each Psychic Pokemon in your discard pile. Now, what's weird about this is that Pokemon Pocket doesn't have really a way to put Pokemon in your discard pile other than them getting KO'd, which means I just don't think Houndstone is going to be very, very good. This is the new Gimmighoul that we will use to, of course, evolve into Gholdengo, which we'll talk about soon. This card is kind of crazy as far as like basic Pokemon like this go. It does 20 damage until you flip tails. So like you can just KO, well, you can go turn 1 and 1 hit KO a Mega Pokemon with this if you get lucky. So these types of, like coin flip decks that just kind of go and go and go if you get lucky are inherently just kind of crazy. If you remember like Continuous Step Eevee back in the day, this is that like times... Like I think it's actually the same card. But yeah, absolutely insane. This is a very, very strong Pokemon. This literally might just be worth playing like in any deck just because of the RNG aspect of it. But anyway, there you go. We have a new Annihilate, 140 HP fighting type, does 90 damage for 1 fighting energy, which is actually quite strong, 90 for 1, but does 30 to itself. Now, what's awkward about Annihilate is that, with the damage to itself and even 140 HP, you're going to get revenge KO'd, and also you're not KOing anything, so it's a very awkward Pokemon, one I don't think is very good, unfortunately. So shout out to Annihilate. We have Toad's Cruel, 120 HP fighting type here, stage 1, 3 energy, 70, and Paralysis. But you have to flip a coin, of course. So a fighting Pokemon for 3 energies, that's going to be quite tough. Also, flip a coin for Paralysis. I don't love it. We've already seen Cloth here. Here's Tinglu, another unfortunately not good card. 120 HP, Arrogant Impact, 130 damage for, again, 3 fighting. So how are we going to get the fighting energy on here? Who knows? Not me. If this Pokemon's remaining HP is 60 or less, the attack does nothing. So again, a really... just not great Pokemon. Speaking of not great Pokemon, we have Koraidon. Again, tons of filler cards in this set, but a couple of gems. These are just not any of them. Fighting, again, not getting any love, unfortunately. 120, 4 energies, 120, and you discard 2 energies from Koraidon. So, again, just absolute filler, never going to see play. New Clodsire does 70, discard the top card of your opponent's deck for 3 energies. Not very good. We have a Low-Kicks here, which does 80 for 1, and you flip a coin. If tails... it does nothing. So again, you're not playing that card. Mabostiff, 120 HP, Wild Tackle, 110 damage, 22 itself. Again, absolute filler cards. Next up is Grafaiai though. Basic, 90 HP, or no, it's not basic. It's a stage 1 Pokemon. I always forget. It has the attack, Colorful Attack, 30 damage, but if your Pokemon in play have 3 or more different types of energy, so if on your board you have 3 or more different types of energies, it actually does 90 for 1 colorless. So this is a very interesting card, quite frankly. I don't know if it will see play, but it's actually really not a bad card at all. So a very interesting one. Bombardier, basic 90 HP fly, 3 colorless, 70 damage, flip a coin if tails. This attack does nothing, and if heads, during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage from and effects of attacks done to this Pokemon. So unfortunately, half the time, your attack doesn't do anything. So we can't be playing that. Here's a new Tinkaton with Gigaton Hammer, 3 metal energies for 140, and you can't use Gigaton Hammer next turn. Again, guys, these are all just filler cards. You could maybe play decks with these. They're not going to do anything. Reverum here does 50 for 2, and poisons, again, absolute filler. Now let's talk about a randomly broken card that they just decided to throw into this set. Why? I don't know, but that's just how these sets work. Anyway, this is Orthworm, a basic steel Pokemon with 100 HP, and it has the attack, quite simply, Iron Supply for 1 steel energy, does 10 damage, and you take a steel energy from your energy zone and attach it to one of your benched Pokemon. It could be an evolution Pokemon, could be a basic Pokemon, could be a steel Pokemon, could be a Pokemon of any type, could be a random Mega Pokemon. What's really cool about Orthworm is that it's an absolute tank, bro. This card is phenomenal. This might be one of the best cards in this entire set. It's basically a free 1-for-1 energy. As long as you're playing steel energies in your energy zone, Orthworm can kind of power things up pretty reliably because you're almost always going to live hits in the early game. And you could also Metal Core Barrier to make Orthworm live more than 1 hit, even into the mid to late game, which is effectively kind of broken. It's kind of a way to guarantee like 2 to 3 energies on any Pokemon you want to have in the late game. Not only that, but if you go through a couple of Orthworms, you can Mars your opponent to 1. It really is a very, very good card. So I think that this is kind of something that Steel Pokemon have been looking for. This does make sense with Gholdengo. I don't think Gholdengo is that good of a Pokemon, but Orthworm is certainly a good Pokemon. This could really help with Steelix stacks. This could help with literally anything. Like we could even play like Turbo Steelix with Orthworm now, and that's kind of crazy. It's a little bit crazy. It only does 10 damage, so it's not like it's doing too much other than setting up a Pokemon, but that's the whole concept with Orthworm, is that it can live hits and generate additional energies. Every turn that Orthworm is on the board or is able to live an attack, that's an additional energy that we get to one of our bench Pokemon. It's actually a really good card. So shout out to Orthworm. And of course, Gholdengo, which, you know, you would kind of pair with Orthworm probably. Spending Rush, we've already talked about this, does 40 randomly to a Pokemon for however many energies we have on this Pokemon. We've seen things like this before. The spread damage is very RNG. Hydreigon Turbo format means that, you know, unfortunately, Orthworm might just kind of get smoked, or, you know, Gholdengo in general. I just don't really love this, but it can be kind of crazy. This is going to be one of those decks where you either just steamroll it and it does nothing, or it just somehow gets 10 energies onto it and you lose the game. Like that's kind of what we're talking about here. The cool thing about Gholdengo, though, is that it has 150 HP. So when you do bring in Gholdengo, you can probably live a hit and get double Spending Rush attacks off, which might be enough to win games. So if Gholdengo ends up being like a real meta deck, I wouldn't even be that surprised. I just don't know if I'm really betting on Gholdengo, but it is a kind of a fun Pokemon. All of these colorless Pokemon are really not good. Oinkolo, not good. Maushold, not good. Swawkabilly, not good. And Sylas are not good. So that's a little disappointing. Also, Flamigo, not good. So I'm not even going to talk about those cards. But what I am going to talk about is probably the most important card to come out in this entire set, which is Electric Generator. Yeah, okay. Here is an item card that reads, flip a coin. If heads, take a lightning energy from your energy zone and attach it to one of your benched lightning Pokemon. Now, this might not seem that good at first glance, but keep in mind we can play Will and guarantee that we do get that lightning energy on this turn. And even if we don't, it's just a 50-50 chance. You play double electric energy generators in your deck, and you can kind of most of the time get 1 free energy, sometimes 2 free energies. This is going to be really great for aggro lightning decks, but specifically going to be really good in Bellibolt, of course, because, you know, we don't actually need that many energies on Bellibolt, right? So like if we have just 2 energies on Bellibolt, we can electric generator the bench, and that counts to satisfy Bellibolt's ability, which is pretty cool. But also you could just use this with any bench setup lightning Pokemon that you want. Mega Ampharos as an example, you know, Pikachu EX to hit for 150. There's like infinite opportunities here. This is just an absolutely broken card that is going to open up the path, I think, for a lot of lightning type decks to be just way more viable. If I'm being honest with you. And we do have Elemental Switch. So you could play Zeraora, Pichu, Electric Generator, Elemental Switch, Electrical Cord, whatever you want. I don't even know what, like the lightning decks are absolutely turbo, and I think Bellibolt's going to be at the forefront of that. But really any lightning type Pokemon is probably going to be able to utilize this pretty effectively. this is a very, very impactful card. I know it's more coin flips, but most decks aren't really going to need heads from Electric Generator, so the RNG isn't like decks aren't going to be predominantly needing the lightning energies, but it's about the potential, just like we had the Misty potential of going, hey, like sometimes I get the energies on my first turn and I can attack. Not only that, but if you're playing baby Pokemon, you are actually able to get like one or two energies technically through Electric Generator on your Pokemon on your first turn. So you can do turn 1 attacks because you can just free retreat with a baby Pokemon and then go into like whatever, I don't even know, like whatever basic lightning Pokemon has a 1 or 2 energy attack cost. Like you could just get that off on your first turn. Again, very, very influential here. It's just more energies, which I think is really, really good for Bellibolt. Just a really crazy card. This is really going to open up so many different avenues for lightning type decks. And I think this is a very, very, very big deal. And we'll have to see. We'll have to see if we have good enough lightning Pokemon to take advantage of this. I think Bellibolt's broken, but anyway, Electric Generator is absolutely wild. We have Big Air Balloon. I haven't actually thought about this card much because I just don't know off the top of my head, but this gives any Stage 2 Pokemon in the game free retreat. So I don't know if there's any Stage 2 Pokemon in the game that would love free retreat, but now you can do that. So I don't know what that means. I haven't even looked into it. Somebody might have something off the top of their head. Don't forget to comment down below if you have any ideas. But yeah, free retreat on Stage 2 Pokemon sounds kind of niche, but maybe there's something broken in the game. That's just a hilarious card to get. Next up, we have Team Star Grunt, a new supporter card here that reads, discard a random energy from among the energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon that have an ability. So what this means is that, you play this card and you're guaranteed to discard one random energy. You just don't know what Pokemon that's from. It could be from any of your opponent's Pokemon that have abilities. Now, of course, if your opponent doesn't play any Pokemon with abilities, this card is useless. But if you're playing against an opponent that has like one specific Pokemon with an ability, think Suicune EX, think Greninja EX, think anything, I don't even know. Like there's a lot, like even Hydreigon, although this won't be very useful for Hydreigon because it discards energies after it attacks, but this is really not a bad card. Very specific. It's going to be useless in some decks, but against some decks, but going to be really good against other decks. So really interesting, a very, very interesting card. If Suicune ever really does become meta, this could be something that is very, very good into Suicune specifically. And I say if Suicune becomes meta, it's obviously meta, but it's not like tier 0 like it used to be. So checks and balances is what I think this card is kind of all about. A super random card, but quite good, quite honestly. Not a bad card at all, just situational. They did reprint a couple of supporters. Some people were upset about this. This entire set, by the way, is like reused artwork and stuff. So some people are going to be upset about whatever. I'm just here talking about the metagame and the viability of cards. But Penny and Iono are both old cards that were released. Now, again, we did get 1, 2, 3 new supporter cards anyway. So I don't think these 2 new supporter cards were replacing anything that we would have gotten. But they are just sort of 2 cards that already are in the game. And since both of these cards, well, I guess Iono is from... Is it from Paldea? Is Iono from Paldea? I guess it is, yeah. So Iono and Penny are both from Paldea, from the region in the stories. So I guess they just reprinted these supporter cards because they already existed in the game. They're the exact same, but I guess you can get them in this set. So there you go. Now, Arven is another card that we talked about a little bit. I really don't think this card is bad at all. I think this is probably worth playing in most decks, as long as you're playing like Rare Candy and a Stage 2 Pokemon. I actually really like this. Arven, of course, is going to allow you to kind of grab those electrical generators out of your deck, so it's actually quite good in sort of Turbo Lightning type decks as well, but mostly going to be useful in decks that are playing Rare Candy and a tool card, which coincidentally is most cards. Like Hydreigon can use this, Suicune can use this. There's a lot of applications for Arven, and sometimes if you go ahead and you grab a Pokeball with Arven, that's not even that bad because then Pokeball's grabbing a Pokemon, and you've effectively thinned 2 cards out of your deck list. So I actually really like Arven. Maybe it'll squeeze into some decks as a one-off, maybe not. Mesagoza as well, also very underrated. I don't think people realize if you can get a Mesagoza in play early, then that just adds a ton of extra Pokemon to your deck. Some of these evolution decks really are going to love Mesagoza. It's going to make certain things way more consistent. Now, on the flip side, your opponent can use the stadium. So if you're going up against Hydreigon, you might let them flip heads and get their own Hydreigon, but this is going to be useful in the sense that you just have a 50-50 chance. If you need your Stage 2 Pokemon to win the game, you can just play Mesagoza and it's a coin flip, and you can just say, hey, you know what? I know I got 6 cards in deck. I'm looking for that, that Hydreigon. I'm looking for that Blaziken EX. I'm looking for that Meowscarada, that Bellibolt, whatever it is. And you can play Mesagoza and leave it up to a coin flip. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. Or you can play this card early in the game and give yourself 4 or 5 coin flips throughout the game to kind of just get Pokemon and make your deck a little bit more consistent. The caveat to that is that your opponent also will get that ability. So I think that any deck that rides off of early game momentum is actually going to really like Mesagoza. And even though your opponent also gets the effect, if you get to have the effect first, inherently that's important. Or if your opponent already has all of their Pokemon and you don't, Mesagoza is going to be quite good. So I think this also could be a very, very good stadium card in a lot of decks that aren't already playing a very useful stadium card. And anyway, that's the set. So I know it sounds weird. By the way, the crown rares in the set are Baxcalibur and Electric Generator. Entei, Suicune, and Raikou all got shiny cards. And yeah, the immersive is Arven, which is interesting. And yeah, that's the set. So in summary, I think the set is actually going to be pretty impactful to the metagame. Most of the cards in the set are really not good, but the cards that are good, I think are actually quite good. And I think they're going to be really viable. I think Meowscarada has a ton of potential. I think Arboliva has potential. I think Skeledirge has some potential. I think Armarouge is going to be quite good. It's going to pair well with Charizard. Quite frankly, I think that Chien-Pao is not that good, and I don't think Baxcalibur is going to see that much play, but these two cards have some potential. I think Bellibolt is broken, and I think Electric Generator is absolutely broken, quite frankly, and I think that's probably the next top-tier strategy that we have, and I think Orthworm has a lot of potential on top of all of that. Like I said, Electric Generator going to be a massive buff for so many different lightning type decks. And of course, I think Arven and Mesagoza are going to be decent inclusions in a variety of different decks. So I actually do like this mini set. I really do. I know a lot of people were kind of clowning on it. I know all of the reused artwork. I know it's Paldean, so it's a very easy set to make fun of. But I think some of these cards are going to be very impactful to the metagame. I really do believe that. So that's my set review. Again, it's a small set, but a couple of cards really are kind of bangers. And I think that we're going to have a lot of potential. Keep your eye on Bellibolt. Keep your eye on Charizard, Armarouge. You know, keep your eye on some of this stuff because it really is like kind of strong. Like some of these cards are very, very decent. So yeah, I'm actually kind of excited. We'll see what happens this weekend. We did ban Lucky Ice Pop. Hopefully that just helps, like in general, the flow of like the RNG of the deck. But a lot of things I think might be changing for the metagame. So we're gonna have to just wait and see. I could be wrong about that. We really don't know until the the decks come into play and we see how they all operate. But my hopes are high. And to be fair, we're probably going to get the next set 4 weeks from now. So, whatever happens here, any slight changes to the metagame is going to be kind of a refreshment. Now, we do have to wait 2 more weeks for ranked, unfortunately, but that means you guys can play in our weekly tournament series. That's right. PMPT number 22 is this Saturday, February 28th. Definitely go and register. Going to be a ton of fun. All right, guys, that's the video. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think here. What did you think of the set? What do you think of all of these cards? What's your favorite card? What do you think is the best? What do you think is going to surprise people? I would love to hear it down in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I need to go to bed because it's 12:30. Peace out, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And yeah. Bye.